Now, 7 weather with meteorologist Vivian Gonzalez.
Good morning, South Florida. We are waking up to very calm weather conditions. Temperatures, instead of starting off in the upper 70s, we've dropped down a little bit into the lower 70s. Fort Lauderdale reporting 72, Hollywood at 70, same for Hialeah. 72 in Miami to 68 in Homestead, and around the Keys, lower 70s as well. We have Key West at 72 degrees. On the local storm tracking radar, it's mostly dry and will continue dry, mainly dry at least for today, with minimal showers in the forecast as a front crosses through this morning. The winds already have turned around out of the northwest, and they're ranging between 3 to 7 miles per hour. And here's the big view. We have improving conditions, especially across the northeast. It was very active with wintry weather. It's still freezing in New York at 33, 24 in Chicago, 33 in Atlanta, 42 in New Orleans, and Miami sitting at 72, still the warmest spot on the map. Now, the forecast is called for this front to arrive with very little rain, maybe a spotty shower, but it should be relatively nice today with high pressure building in and then winds shifting this afternoon out of the north and east. We'll have a pleasant one and still above average heading into our Thursday, even Friday, closing out the week very nice. We'll have an onshore flow setting up shop, but then switching around more out of the south over the weekend as another front will be brewing, allowing moisture to be increasing across South Florida for the second half of the weekend. We don't have any boating advisories in effect. Winds later today out of the northeast, 5 to 10 knots. Biscayne Bay smooth. And for the Florida Keys, smooth to a light chop. Seas inside and beyond the reef building 1 to 2 feet. There could be some patchy marine fog this morning. And the next tide cycle, that's going to be high tide in Fort Lauderdale at 6:21, 6:50 in Miami, and at 8:54 for Key West. So for today, times of sunshine, temperatures still above average in the upper 70s to low 80s. Miami tied the record yesterday at 86, and Fort Lauderdale at 87, but we'll be in the lower 80s for mainland South Florida tonight. Mid-upper 60s. It'll be quiet and calm with your extended outlook calling for a nice finish to the week, trending even warmer over the weekend. And on Sunday, we introduced a better chance of seeing some showers with that next front. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast.
Now, 7 weather with meteorologist Vivian Gonzalez.
Good morning, South Florida. We are waking up to still a warm start, but it will be a bit different later today as humidity levels start to go down. There's a front on the move. The chilly air stays to the north. We're still going to be above average. And at least with the passage of this front, there could be maybe an isolated shower at best, but a lot of dry air is already starting to filter in across the Florida peninsula. On the radar, it's mostly dry out there if your commute takes you through Broward, Dade, and the Florida Keys at this time. We do have some lower level clouds and some areas of patchy fog in the western suburbs, so just proceed with caution while driving this morning. Visibility much better in Homestead. Temperature wise, just a small dip in comparison to yesterday when we started off in the upper 70s. We're in the lower 70s along the East Coast. It is currently 72 in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, including Hialeah. Florida Keys in the 70s, 72 in Isla Mirada and Key West, with the wind already out of the north and west. And as far as the big view is concerned, mid-Atlantic, northeast looking a whole lot better from that wintry mix that happened yesterday. But it is freezing in New York and Atlanta to 32, 42 in New Orleans, and South Florida continues to be the warmest in the country. So for today, we'll have this front cross through later this morning with very little rain. High pressure builds in on the back end. So starting late afternoon and evening, winds will switch out of the north and east. It'll be less humid on Thursday, still pleasantly warm. And then we'll finish off the week with a little more humidity in the air as another front starts to brew around the Gulf Coast states. Your boating forecast calls for no advisories. Northwest winds early on, shifting out of the northeast later today. 5 to 10 knots. Seas building up to 2 feet. Biscayne Bay smooth. Florida Keys, there are no advisories here with seas inside and beyond the reef building 1 to 2 feet. Some patchy marine fog possible on the bay side, smooth to a light chop. With the next tide cycle, that is going to be high tide coming up next in Key West at 8:54. So for today, we'll have highs between 78 and 84 degrees, still above average, just nowhere near as warm as yesterday. Tonight, a few clouds will keep things quiet and comfortable, with your extended outlook calling for even warmer weather over the weekend ahead of another front that could actually cool us down a bit next week. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast.
Now, 7 weather with meteorologist Erika Delgado.
All right, South Florida temperatures have remained steady for much of the area as we wait for a front to clear South Florida. 76 right now in Fort Lauderdale, 77 in Miami, and we're seeing a lot more of those upper 70s across the Florida Keys, with the wind now coming out of the northwest for Miami-Dade and Broward, out of the north-northeast for the Florida Keys, 5 to 10 miles per hour. And we've been stuck under this cloud deck across South Florida since earlier this morning. Even low clouds and even some fog of reducing visibility very early today. We're starting to see some clearing. So northwest Broward possibly seeing peaks of sunshine, and we'll notice that continuing through the rest of the morning with more clouds beginning to move into the Florida Keys. We've been dry other than maybe a spotty shower or passing sprinkle here and there, but you can see there really isn't a whole lot of moisture associated with this front. What we are seeing is cooling already across the northern half of the state. For us here, we remain warm because the cooler air will lag behind today, so high temperatures will reach into the mid to lower 80s, and then eventually that dry air begins to move into night, leaving for lower humidity throughout the day on Thursday, and just a nice day with comfortable conditions, and we'll continue to see those clouds pushing through. Near average temperatures on Thursday. Then on Friday, we're still dry and still relatively comfortable, but we'll notice warming as our wind pattern begins to veer out of the south-southeast. No advisories for boaters. Seas around 2 feet, Biscayne Bay smooth, and as we work our way into the Florida Keys, seas at most building up to 2 feet. Coastal waters smooth to a light chop, with a low tide happening around midday or so. 12:22 in Fort Lauderdale, 12:31 in Miami. Key West, your low tide will be at 1:17 this afternoon. And speaking of this afternoon, we may see some afternoon sunshine, warm but still mainly dry. Temperatures in the mid to mostly lower 80s. Front pushes through. Finally, dry air begins to move in, so tonight looking less humid. Overnight lows will be comfortable in the mid to upper 60s for our mainland, low 70s for the Florida Keys. Again, nice on Thursday with some clouds around, still dry but warm Friday. More humidity for the weekend, and then Sunday, Monday looking like the best chance of seeing those showers. That's your 7 on 7.
7 weather with meteorologist Erika Delgado.
Right, South Florida, as we wait for a front to push through and clear our area, we're already seeing a lot of cooling across northern sections of the state. 30s right now in Pensacola, 40s in Tallahassee. We're in the 50s from Jacksonville through Gainesville, and temperatures are still in the upper 60s for Central Florida. We have remained steady in the mid to upper 70s for the Keys, and mid 70s across Miami-Dade and Broward County. We do have a wind out of the west-northwest, 5 to 10 miles per hour. The dry air that we've been waiting for still hasn't arrived. We have some sprinkles here that have tried to push through the Keys. Some may actually skirt areas like the Marquesas. Otherwise, we're not expecting a whole lot of rainfall other than maybe a spotty shower or a sprinkle. Heading into the afternoon, we may see peaks of sunshine, maybe even by midday or so. High temperatures, though, will still remain on the warm side, despite the fact that the front will have cleared us. We're reaching into the mid to lower 80s, and then tonight that slightly cooler air and the drier air begins to move in. So that evening walk tonight looking nice. Temperatures will be in the 60s tomorrow morning with low humidity and highs only in the lower 80s. Still comfortable but warm on Friday with a better chance for showers late weekend into early next week. That's your 7 on 7. All right.